Hey everybody, Mike from True Business Review, and today we're continuing the record predictions of all 32 teams in the NFL. So far we finished the NFC East, and just yesterday we finished the NFC North. Make sure to check out all 8 of those videos where we predicted each of those teams' records individually. They're all in the playlist. It'll say Mike's record predictions. And we're moving on to a new division today. Today we are predicting the NFC South division to begin. And we're starting off with the Atlanta Falcons, a very interesting team, and I'll talk about why in a second. I just want to say keep up the support on these videos. Make sure we're all hitting that subscribe button, and let's get right into things. So before we go game by game and predict their wins and losses, let's talk about what the Atlanta Falcons are as a team and how they've improved or got worse. So every single year, I think to myself, why are the Atlanta Falcons not good? Why aren't they making the playoffs? I don't think their coach, Dan Quinn, has been that horrible. And I don't think their team is that horrible every year. They had Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman, Vic Beasley, Austin Hooper, Desmond Trufant. They had a really good team. And then they always barely even got to 500, or they went like 6-10, 7-9, which always surprised me. I was always high on this team, but honestly, that's going to disappear this year, and let me tell you why. The Falcons were one of the teams in the NFL that lost the most in the offseason. This offseason, they lost Devontae Freeman, star running back, Desmond Trufant, very good cornerback, Vic Beasley, Austin Hooper, and things with Todd Gurley are still in the works. It's kind of, 50-50. So, yeah, they lost those players. However, they added Hayden Hurst to fill the tight end position. They think they replaced Desmond Trufant with A.J. Terrell, first-round pick out of Clemson. It's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be able to fill that void. Honestly, I don't think. Maybe eventually he will, but for the first 2 or 3 years in his contract, it's going to be interesting to see how he develops because he's not going to be that guy right off the bat. The wide receiver room is decent. Obviously, they have one of the best receivers in the league, Julio Jones. Then they have a pretty solid guy who's kind of developing into a really strong number 2, Calvin Ridley. And then their third receiver after they lost Mohamed Sanu to the Patriots, kind of up in the air. So that's a little sketchy. They do have a decent defense. Obviously, they lost a lot of pieces, but they have still Grady Jarrett for the defensive line, Dante Fowler, and Deion Jones. Deion Jones is one of the quickest linebackers in the league, so he's a pretty solid guy on defense to have. So the Falcons did lose a lot, and that's going to hurt their record prediction. But for some reason, I always think the Falcons are going to find a way into the playoffs. Obviously, they had a pretty strong win streak going at the end of 2019. So I can't be too harsh on this team, but we'll see how their predictions goes. Here is their schedule, as you can see. So they start things off week 1 against one of the toughest teams in the NFL, the Seattle Seahawks. This is a home game for the Falcons to start the year off, but it's Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Chris Carson, Jadeveon Clowney. How many players can I list off in speed order for you to know that the Seahawks are going to win this game? The Seahawks are just a stronger team offensively and defensively, and regardless of where this game is played, the Seahawks are going to come out strong and dominate the Falcons week 1. Falcons start off 0-1. Next up, Falcons go on the road for the first time in 2020 and play the Dallas Cowboys. As much as I wish I could give the Dallas Cowboys this loss, I cannot. Keep in mind, the Dallas Cowboys starting cornerbacks for 2020 are Trevon Diggs, Chidobe Awuzie, 2 Randys. They also have a pretty new-look defensive line, which I still think will be solid, but a lot of new pieces in Dallas. However, Dallas's offense will prevail week 2, and it will beat the Atlanta Falcons in Dallas. Falcons 0-2. Week 3, the Falcons play the Chicago Bears in Atlanta. I believe that the Falcons win this game week 3, and there's one reason. I think that Mitchell Trubisky is in the quarterback, and that's the reason the Bears will lose ultimately. Mitchell Trubisky is not the guy for the Bears. We all know who is. It's Nick Foles. So if Nick Foles is benched at this point, Matt Nagy, what are you thinking? Bears lose to the Falcons. Falcons get their first win of the season, 1-2. Tough 4 weeks for the Falcons. They go to travel to Green Bay to play the Packers next. Packers are a strong team. You can make sure you check out their record predictions. We just finished those a couple days ago. It's going to be interesting because at the beginning of the season, it might be weird to see Jordan Love on the sideline. Who knows how that locker room is going to react? Everyone heard that Aaron Rodgers said he might not finish his career in Green Bay. That might impact the dynamics of the locker room there. And I believe that the Packers might not start off too hot, as hot as everyone would like, but I do think that they have a strong roster overall. Aaron Jones is going to have another good year. He finished off 2019 strong, and the Packers beat the Falcons ultimately in Green Bay. Falcons 1-3. Next up, Falcons play one of the worst teams in the NFL in 2020, the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, interestingly, they actually have a really dynamic offense, I think. I'm questioning Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think he's the guy to lead this team, but who knows? Hopefully he's a comeback player of the year. But they do have Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and a strong receiving core. So that's really interesting on offense. But on defense, they lost a lot of pieces on defense. And the thing about the Panthers, it's going to be a ton of rookies, like honestly. In the draft, they drafted the first 7 rounds, all defense. Defensive tackle, defensive end, safety, cornerback, safety, defensive tackle, cornerback. So their defense is definitely hurting, but their receivers, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, and DJ Moore, definitely strong receiver room, and they have McCaffrey. But the Panthers will be one of the worst teams in the NFL, so Panthers lose to the Falcons. Falcons are 2-3. Next up, Falcons traveled to Minnesota to play the Vikings. I don't really have that much reasoning for this game. Like, I think the Vikings they definitely improved a little bit. They lost Stephon Diggs, but got Justin Jefferson. Honestly, I don't know if they improved, but they kind of stayed the same, I guess. Justin Jefferson's a different player than Stephon Diggs, different receiving type. Stephon Diggs could stretch the field vertically, and Justin Jefferson's more of an Alshon Jeffrey kind of guy. So they do lose that speed target, but I think he's going to be a high volume target for Kirk Cousins, and I think Dalvin Cook has another dominant year. The Vikings defense isn't the strongest though. They have Harrison Smith, Daniel Hunter, and a good linebacker core, but the rest of their defense is kind of a little sketchy going into 2020, especially their cornerbacks. I don't really have reason. I'm not going to say the Falcons are a better team than the Vikings. I just feel like there's upset potential in this game. And for that reason, I'm going to get the Atlanta Falcons to win in Minnesota week 6, it looks like. And Falcons get the win there. So Falcons 3-3. Next up, the Falcons play the Lions. So I already talked about the Lions a lot. Honestly, I think the Lions are the Cinderella story in 2020. They're going to be the Tennessee Titans, kind of, how the Tennessee Titans came out of nowhere and surprised a lot of people. The Lions have a good offense. Stop sleeping. Holy. Kenny Golladay, DeAndre Swift, Stafford, Marvin Jones, Amendola, Kerryon Johnson. They have a decent offensive line as well. And their defense, true. They got Desmond Trufant from the Falcons, so this is his revenge game. Desmond Trufant gets his revenge against the Falcons. But, unfortunately, the narrative is not going to be the way that he likes, because I think that the Lions choke, and I think ultimately this could be an upset game. I think the Lions are going to start out kind of slow. Wait a second, let me see. Oh, look at that. Never mind. I'm colorblind. The Falcons are going to lose to the Lions. I was a little sketched out too, because I was like, I don't know about Falcons losing to the Lions. Yeah. So I'm giving the Falcons the loss to the Lions. Like I was saying, the Lions' offense is really strong this year, and Desmond Trufant will get his revenge. They also signed Jeff Okudah kind of to cover the loss of Darius Slay. So Lions get their revenge, and the Falcons are 3-4. Next up, Falcons get to play the Panthers again, this time in Carolina. Panthers still going to be a horrible team with their defense in shambles, and the Falcons go 2-0 and sweep the Panthers in 2020, and Falcons are 4-4, back to 500. Next up, Falcons play the Broncos. Broncos are another Cinderella story candidate. They could have another breakout. They could have a breakout year. They got KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy, 2 draft picks I really like, but a little sketched out about Drew Lock. I do think the Broncos will be in contention for the playoffs. So obviously with the 7 playoff team format per division, it's like in the AFC, if you look at it really closely and you predict every single thing, there's really only 7 teams that have a chance of making the playoffs. So most of the teams that make the playoffs are going to not be surprises. In the NFC though, there's a lot of strong teams that could make the playoffs. So it's going to be a little sketchy, but I think the Falcons beat the Broncos in Atlanta. This game was in Denver. I think that Drew Lock might have a really solid game and throw deep and all that, but I think that the Falcons find a way to win this one, and they're 5-4, over 500 for the first time. Next up, they have to travel to New Orleans for the first time and play the Saints. Let me just get this out of the way. The Saints are going to beat the Falcons. Like, come on now. It's kind of obvious. It's kind of, Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, strongest trio in the league. Taysom Hill, X Factor, Marshawn Lattimore, solid defense. Malcolm Jenkins, huge addition to the Saints. I think the Saints are going to have one of the best records in the NFL. Definitely one of the strongest in the NFC teams. And the Saints will beat the Falcons in New Orleans. Then the Falcons play the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders are going to be one of the best teams in the NFL. I think the Raiders could be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like the area of 4 to 6 wins, honestly. Henry Ruggs was not the best draft pick for that team. Like, obviously he's a speed threat, but with some of the receivers still on the board at that point, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, I don't know why they're picking Henry Ruggs. So Raiders lose to the Falcons. The Falcons are 6-5. It looks like, 6-5. Next up, the Falcons play the Saints again, so they have a pretty solid. They go Saints, Raiders, Saints, and they're going to lose to the Saints again. Not a surprise. Same reasons, unless Drew Brees is injured, Michael Thomas is injured, or Kamara is injured, then Falcons aren't going to beat the Saints. Wow, they stuck with the Saints for a game maybe in 2019 or something like that. I don't care. It's 2020. You can't expect the Falcons to beat the Saints, especially with all the people they lost. So the Saints are going to sweep the Falcons in 2020, and 6-6, back to 500. Next up, they travel to Los Angeles to play the Chargers, where I think they will find a win. Similar to the Raiders, I think that the Chargers have the same dynamic, especially with losing Phillip Rivers. They got Justin. I think Justin Herbert was a really good pick for this team. He has a similar body type to Phillip Rivers. He could develop into a similar player. Keenan Allen's pretty strong. I don't like Austin Eckler being the number 1 running back. I don't know how good he is. I know he had a good year, but I'm still not sold. So Falcons beat the Chargers in Los Angeles. The Chargers don't have any. The Chargers don't have any fans. Come on now. But so Falcons go over 500, and looks like they're 7-6. Yep. Next up, they play the Buccaneers late in the season. I think this is going to be one of the most interesting games of the year, because we have a not-so-good defense of the Falcons, not-so-good defense of the Buccaneers, really strong offense of the Buccaneers, and then pretty solid offense of the Falcons. I'm giving the win to the Falcons just because it's in Atlanta, and I think that maybe Matt Ryan and Julio Jones pop off. Maybe Calvin Ridley has a couple deep touchdowns. Falcons pull off the win late in the season, and they're 8-6. 8-6, and the Falcons are looking to maybe go 10-6, and maybe even contend for the wild card. Maybe, who knows? But unfortunately, their last 2 games at Kansas City to play the Chiefs, insert laughing noise, GG, and then at Buccaneers to play the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. So in Kansas City, how do I say this? That's a smackdown waiting to happen. Pat Mahomes and all his speedy threats on offense, Travis Kelce. The Chiefs' defense might not be the strongest in the NFL, but is it going to matter when you're scoring 60 points per quarter if you really try? Chiefs' offense is going to be one of the best in the league. There's not going to be no Super Bowl hangover for Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs are still going to be a really strong team, and the Chiefs beat the Falcons in Kansas City, Arrowhead. Next up, revenge game for the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers play in Tampa Bay this time, and I think that Tom Brady, he hates losing. I hate Tom Brady, but he hates losing, and I think that he pulls off a win, and they split with the Falcons in 2020. I think the Buccaneers are maybe getting a little overhyped. I think their offensive line still needs some work, and I think their defense needs some work. So I don't think that they're going to be contenders right off the bat this year, but I do think that late in the season, in the final week, the Buccaneers will beat the Atlanta Falcons to finish the season off. Look for Gronkowski or Chris Godwin to pop off this game. I'm actually really interested to see Tom Brady throw to Mike Evans. It's going to be night and day. Mike Evans is going to be getting passes right in his hand, as opposed to having Jameis Winston just chuck it over in his direction. So, but with that being said, Falcons finish 8-8 for the season. 8-8, not a horrible record. Might not be what Falcons fans are liking, but honestly, I think 8-8 is being pretty generous, considering all of the losses that you guys had. So with that being said, make sure you guys show some support in this video. Next up is going to be the Carolina Panthers, and yeah, Panthers fans might not like the prediction for the Panthers. Could be one of the worst teams in the NFL, so rip. But next up is the Panthers. Make sure you guys subscribe, show some support, and that's it. Thank you.